Hi, everybody. Welcome to Sarah's Writing Spot. I'm Sarah, and today we're going to talk about how to use example narrative essays before your next writing unit. So let's get started. All right. So first of all, how do you feel about narrative writing? I know in my case, it was completely out of my comfort zone. I much preferred the 5 paragraph essay because you had that very neat and organized format to follow every single time. Narrative writing, much different. I don't recommend trying to squeeze it into a 5 paragraph format. You're not going to get great quality work that way. Sometimes the younger students learn that way in the very beginning, but as they're getting older, we really don't want to be doing that. So, I really struggled with how do I teach my kids how to create a really great story? So, one thing I started doing was creating examples because I knew that just like when you learn anything new, you need to have an example to see what it should look like when you're finished. So, I discovered that when I started using examples, the students' work was so much better. Then they could see exactly what they were supposed to be doing. So, just like I have here, an example essay is really a roadmap for students. Think about it. If you had never ridden a horse before and someone just said, go ride a horse, and didn't tell you anything else, they said, just do it, you probably wouldn't do a very good job. You'd probably fall off the horse. You wouldn't know how to put your feet in the stirrups, all of those types of things. That's why modeling is so important in seeing an example. You need to see somebody do it first, see what their posture is, learn some tips and tricks, really analyze it before you have a turn. Same thing with your students. You always want to be modeling so that they can see exactly what they're supposed to do. So we really want to be using those examples before students even start writing their essays for the first time. So what should a narrative essay example look like? Well, if you've ever gone out onto Google and just Googled narrative essay example, there's some good examples out there, but most of them are all black and white. Some of them are really wordy. Some of them go over multiple pages. And that's really kind of hard to teach with. So if you're going to create your own or look for one that's good quality, then these are some characteristics I would recommend. So first of all, make sure it's colorful. The brain remembers things and enjoys things better when there's color. So look for an essay example that highlights the specific characters in different colors. For example, in this one, you'll see that it has the characters and setting introduced at the beginning in one color. Or you might have a feeling sentence in a different color, or an idiom is highlighted in a different color. So it's just easier to break down and discuss the essay with your students when there's color added to it. I also suggest an essay that has labels. So again, just like in this example, it's labeled so students can see what's important when they're writing their essay. You have one label is transition word, another label is action, another label is dialogue, another label is clever closing. So students know that when they're writing, they need to include all of those in their story too. I also recommend it being succinct, short, just one page. It's just easier to teach that way. You don't want an essay that's got like a little bit dribbled onto another page. It's going to be too overwhelming to have something too long. I always like to have an essay that's just one page for my students. So now when you use this example, I don't recommend simply just handing out the example. It's a great model for them to have to keep in their notes. But I think it's also worthwhile and really useful to hand out a black and white essay that's blank, and then using a checklist of all the important elements of a quality narrative essay, and then having with the students using that checklist and going back in that checklist and highlighting and underlining all of those specific characteristics. Then it's not just you telling the students, this is them getting down and dirty and into that essay with you. So I recommend you just giving it to your students and telling them to do it. Here's an example. I don't recommend you just handing them to the checklist and saying, here, look for these items in the essay. It's going to be much more powerful if you do it along with them, especially the first time. You might be able to do that for later lessons if they're used to this, but if it's the first time, you really want to be having those conversations and talking about, why do I put dialogue into a story? Why do I have a bold beginning in my story? Why do I include actions and feelings in a story? And what does it look like? What does it look like in the story? What are transition words in the story? Why is that important? So you can have that conversation as a class. This activity can take an entire 45-minute period. Really get into it and analyze it. That's where the learning takes place. All right, I'd like to share one more tip with you before I go. And this tip has to do with choosing which type of narrative to start with. There are two different types of narratives generally in most curriculums. You have the personal narrative, and then you have like fantasy writing, coming up with, make-believe type characters. I really recommend starting your first big narrative writing unit with a personal story. Kids know a lot about themselves. They have a lot of background knowledge. Everybody's had something happen to them that's worth turning into a story. And it's something everybody can participate in. Some students have trouble with fantasies. They have trouble coming up with the setting or who the characters are, or all the special and complex parts that come along with that. So I would really recommend starting with a personal narrative. Now, to get started, I like to use a graphic organizer like this one. And this graphic organizer highlights about 9 strong emotions. You want to pick a story that about a time that really made you super happy, or even sad, or really exciting or surprising, or when you were really grossed out. So this organizer helps students brainstorm different emotions and memories that they've had in their lives. And they can just jot down lots of different ideas and then just choose one. And then you choose one to start with. It's a lot of fun to share out with the class, have each other share out so that others can get ideas from their peers. So this is a really fun idea. This is actually a free organizer on my Teachers Pay Teachers store. So if you'd like to give this a try, head on over there and you can get it for free. All right. Thank you for joining me today. I really hope you were able to learn some new tips and tricks for attacking that next narrative writing unit. I hope that you can take that back to your classroom and really see your students create some awesome pieces. Now, if you're looking for any examples like the one you saw in today's video, I do have them in my Teachers Pay Teachers store. So if you don't feel like searching Google or creating them on your own, just head on over to TPT and check those out. I hope you all have a great day. Happy writing, and I'll see you next time.